Hello, everyone. My name is Monet Benson, and I'm here to talk about the impact of mindfulness-based interventions for the overall well-being of adolescents. The research question that I began this research with was, what is the impact of mindfulness interventions for high school adolescents? The findings of this report support the inquiry of discovering effective mindfulness practices that are supportive for promoting healthy behaviors in high school aged adolescents between the ages of 14 and 15. I'm sorry, 14 and 18. And before I discuss the findings, I'd really like to share my inspiration for this topic. My first spark of inspiration for this topic began when I was a youth support worker at a residential treatment center for at-risk and foster youth. And while I was working with this group of youth, I remember working with adolescents who were really struggling deeply with their mental, emotional, physical, and social health and well-being. And this population of youth not only faced unique life circumstances that had significant impacts on their overall health and well-being, but many had also faced trauma of some kind in their young lives and were learning how to manage their resulting behaviors. And so my intention with this research topic is to shed some light on the challenges that adolescents are facing and to also provide recommendations for possible ways to support youth as they develop in their high school years. Today's youth, regardless of whether they are in treatment centers or in public high schools, face challenges at this stage of their development because they are facing a multitude of new changes as they grow. And these changes and challenges can look like transitioning from one school into another as they advance from middle school into high school. Youth are facing new responsibilities such as new classes with new teachers and new faces, new topics. They have the potential to join new clubs and extracurricular activities like sports and dance and theater and whatever they choose to be involved in, if they choose to be involved in anything. And most importantly, they are preparing for life after high school. They are developing biologically, and they're navigating puberty and everything that comes with it. And they may have life stressors such as family dysfunction or health problems for themselves or maybe even for family members. Adolescents in high school during the years of 2020 to the current year, 2022, have faced the challenge of living through a pandemic and have had to make many adjustments. One of those adjustments has been the transition from in-person schooling to online education to a mixed model of both in-person and online and back to full-time in person. And even as they are in full-time in person, they face the uncertainty of, is this all going to change up on them again? What can they depend on? What is going to be certain? How can they find foundations when everything is constantly changing on them? So, what can be done to support today's youth with the changes and challenges that they are facing? One impactful way to support youth is to implement mindfulness interventions into their education. And where does mindfulness practices fit into the school curriculum, into their education? Well, mindfulness practices can be added to many areas of daily routines and the school curriculum. For example, teachers can choose to implement mindfulness into their classrooms by beginning lecture with a breathing practice or a body scan to assist in grounding the students into their bodies. And this could be beneficial for bringing their awareness to the present moment and heightening their focus for the lesson of the day. And breathing practices and body scans can also be useful in one-on-one sessions with students who may be experiencing anxiety or stress and are coming to their teachers or school counselors seeking assistance with their emotional regulation. Teachers or other trained mindfulness practitioners could create groups or add mindfulness practices to pre-existing classes, like health education or physical education classes. Another recommendation would be to host school-wide events, like wellness events or even wellness weeks, that bring awareness to the benefits of mindfulness on overall health and well-being. And speakers to teach on the topic and lead guided experiences could be a great way to spread this awareness. And these are some of the many ways mindfulness can be added to support youth in their development. So what are some of the benefits of mindfulness interventions? Well, mindfulness improves overall health and well-being. Physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being are all positively impacted by mindfulness. Mindfulness helps youth to slow down, take a breath, and focus on themselves, which ultimately has positive effects for their development. Mindfulness has these positive effects on their social well-being as well. Adolescents tend to experience a sense of camaraderie and connection when practicing mindfulness interventions with their peers. And youth are often more likely to participate in mindfulness interventions and to even take these practices home with them if they know that their peers are also doing so. Teens and adolescents tend to be very peer driven. And so that is something that we can focus on when offering mindfulness practices to the teens that we are serving. Mindfulness also builds resiliency and self-image. Adolescents tend to show improved development in both resiliency and emotional intelligence after practicing mindfulness. Students improve their ability to cope with their emotions and adapt to new challenges being presented to them within the pandemic, such as in-person school, switching to that distance model, and like homework packets, all after practicing mindfulness. They showed the ability to cope with the changes and to build resiliency and to be able to go with the flow and manage what was being asked of them during this time of new responsibilities and new challenges, especially during a pandemic. Mindfulness can strengthen the mind and body connection. Physical awareness and mindful practices like body scans, the practice of bringing mental awareness to the body, can be helpful in creating a mind-body connection. And this form of mind-body connection can be correlated with emotional regulation and mental coping skills in adolescents. Thus, mindfulness teaches emotional regulation and healthy coping skills. Emotional well-being and self-compassion go hand in hand for emotional regulation and healthy coping skills. And daily implementation of mindfulness practices can have a positive impact on these areas of adolescent health. Such practices include breathing techniques, intentional physical activity, and bringing mental awareness to the body with body scans. And an example of intentional physical activity can be something like yoga and stretching and mindful movement. And last but not least, mindfulness is accessible and can be taught on a broad scale. Mindfulness practices can be easily added to pre-existing routines and curriculum. And best of all, they can be adapted to suit the diverse needs of students. And so, future considerations. Considering the knowledge of the benefits of mindfulness for supporting youth in their holistic health and well-being, it would be greatly beneficial to find ways to provide mindfulness techniques that reach as many youth as possible, especially for youth who are facing adversities, such as, but not limited to, battling with their mental health, or their physical abilities, or their economic status. These students and these adolescents are all facing unique struggles that often raise the amount of stressors that they have in their lives. And if we can focus on finding mindfulness activities that can be brought to youth, no matter where they are in life, whether they are in a public school, whether they are in a treatment center, maybe they're homeschooled, and no matter the adversities they're facing, if we can find more and more innovative ways to bring mindfulness to them, I really think that they can benefit from that. And finding ways to expand the access of mindfulness in ways that are intersectional, culturally sensitive, and accessible could create a ripple effect of healing and support going forward. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I am so happy to share on this topic of mindfulness for adolescents.